This is Alex Zaal. I'm the CTO of A2K Partners, and we're very excited to be a part of the Citrix Converge event for 2020. We have participated with Converge for the past 2 years, and always excited to come in and showcase some of the latest and greatest that Citrix has put out with the Microapp environment. We are a cloud and mobile first company. One of the things that we're kind of proud of is we try to be a nomadic company structure. So the work from home, work remote is something we embrace internally as well as externally. And that's where we come in to help our customers meet some of the challenges that the world is having today. So what we're going to talk about today is a use case that came to us from one of our customers that we took our methodology and actually really went in. They came to us, they're in hyper growth mode, and they were looking to scale their sales organization and enhance productivity through automation from onboarding to assured offboarding. So all from identifying that there's a need for a new sales resource to be brought in and doing the entire recruitment hiring process. And once they've gotten those people in, to have an environment that makes it very easy for them to get ramped up and start as quickly as possible. So with this customer, the way we approached what they were asking us to solve, we always try to start with a survey to really understand the challenges that the end customer workers are facing in the environment and the elements that are causing them to slow down or not be as proficient as they could be. And when we do these surveys, we basically are able to identify some key areas that we may be able to help them enhance and improve through the implementation of Microapps. The systems of record that were involved with this solution were Zoho Desk, Bamboo HR, Upwork, Zoho CRM, Microsoft Teams, and Amazon Connect. And so the final solution actually connected all of these applications together into the workspace environment. Whenever Zoho from the CRM, we could identify and notify managers when a large amount of their addressable market wasn't being reached by the rep that those accounts were assigned to. And so that's usually a good indicator that there's opportunity to add another rep to take on some of that load so that you're not just leaving a lot of accounts behind because one person can only handle so much. And through that, then the sales manager could put in a request through Zoho Desk to get another resource to start the recruitment process. That ticket would then be delivered to Bamboo so that the requisition could be created and started. And once that Bamboo rep saw that the requisition was approved, they could then, through Microapps, basically pass all of the job description, et cetera, straight into the Upwork Microapp to start sourcing another sales rep for this company. This company relied heavily on Upwork to source a lot of their talent. So it was a very big freelancer model. And then finally, another enhancement that we found was the ability to get the telephony system, which was Amazon Connect, to actually be fully integrated through Microapps into the Zoho CRM. So now, whenever the rep received lead notifications, et cetera, of things being assigned to them, they could immediately connect with that customer to drive the business forward. We did find that this solution truly became a revenue generating element of this business, especially when they got to quarter end close, where the more efficient they were, the better they were. And from an onboarding perspective, the Microapp technologies made it pretty easy for someone to step into the role and not have to really go learn every single one of these systems of record deeply to get efficient at selling. So for one of our first challenges, what we'd like to do is kind of cover a requirement that we had to get the instance ID into a deep link. For the HR system, it did not support OAuth. And so in order to make sure that critical actions, service actions are done in the system of record, we went with a deep link strategy. And so with that, let me introduce you to Alexander Junquera, who is one of our architects, and he's going to talk to us about the deep links and how he solved them.
Most of the times, an SOR will require different URL depending on the client's instance. Usually, this will be some sort of prefix in the URL. Because of this, it becomes problematic to create deep links that can be reusable regardless of which company is using the integration, because it will require that every deep link be edited in the Microapp pages. The way we solved this when using Bamboo HR was to generate a report in the SOR. While it's not possible to have a Bamboo HR return a value of the client's URL inside a report, we could retrieve the report's names. So we use this fact in order to create data endpoints containing a single report, including its name. And we use that name as data through a relationship to help populate the deep link template. This workaround serves to demonstrate that many times we can insert and retrieve the data from the SORs for totally indirect uses. I'm going to show an example here. This is a Microapp we created for Bamboo HR. Here we have the employee detail page where there's a deep link. Okay, now in this page, I have a deep link button, which is a button that goes directly to the employee page. If I click here, I'll be able to go into the actions and see the link that we use. This link is a template in which I insert the prefix. As you can see here, it's FK company root title. Okay. And I'll show you how I'm being able to insert this. I just insert a variable. I choose the table that we're dealing with. And in this case, I'm going to choose the company name employees. And this table is a table that we generated by reading a certain report that we created. And a part of this data is the name of the integration's prefix that we use, right? The SOR's prefix. Here we choose the field that we use, which is root title. By selecting this and putting insert, I would be inserting this value in any place that I would choose here in the URL template. I can show you the data here. Table, company name employees. And here you have the root title. We created this table, which through a relationship to employees, we can have this value where we can pick any time during the application.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, Alex. And I guess what this does is it allows the definition of the root in the system of record once without having to go edit everything. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Otherwise, we would have to go into each page and edit them.
Perfect. And this is getting around limitations of being able to either store an attribute in the system of record that we can pull. And it was a pretty crafty solution to how do we get deep links into Bamboo HR without having every person that wants to use it, having to update every single deep link area in every page that we have. So another area that we wanted to cover today is how all of the latest updates with child API functionality and Workspace with Intelligence have helped us progress our integrations even further than we could in the past. And so with that, I'd like to pass this to Alexander again to kind of discuss some of the areas that he's found very big value in what these changes have brought to the table for us.
Originally, when we began to use the child API feature, it was very hard to find an SOR that allowed us to use the APIs properly due to the necessity of having a unique primary key. And most of the child API calls in the SORs neglected to include any unique key or information on the parent entity. After a certain release, Citrix included the ability to merge data from the parent and the child. This allowed us to use both information to generate a composite key, which opened many possibilities for us. A good example was how we used this in the Slack channel members. Here in the channels, you can see we have the members call, child API call. But if I show you the results from the system of records, you see that it's a very inadequate result for us to work with. See, here in Slack, when we try to get the members, it only returns an array of user IDs, and this is not useful. And we wouldn't be able to use it if we only had this as a unique identifier, because the same user can be in multiple channels, and it wouldn't work. So what Citrix did was it included the ability for us to include the parents' information. So if you look here, the data we're actually using, we get the ID that arrives from the channel and the value, which is one of those values that I showed before. And we use both of them as primary key. I could possibly demonstrate this. Let me delete this table. Continue. And I'm going to try to generate it again. Now I'm going to pick members. Now here you can see the merging. So by merging with the parents, I'm able to include this value that I'm inserting here on the parent API to provide us both information. Let me generate the table, include here. So basically what I'm doing is I'm ignoring all of the data that I don't need from the parent. So I'm going to ignore everything. And I'm just going to leave the ID. On the bottom here, the last item is the actual value that's returned on the child API. So I only have these two values, the value of the user ID on the members and the ID of the parent. And I'm going to put both as primary keys. Then I put save. It's going to generate a table with only the two values, which is enough for me to reference in the relationship. And it's enough to have so that I have a user per channel as a unique ID. So that's what allowed us to use so many child API calls in all our latest integrations.
Yeah, this was definitely a big enhancement for us. We truly were able to put it to use pretty quickly.
Here I'm going to show an example of using page logic to mimic the creation of new items in a page to make the form appear dynamic. This example here is a share file page where we select recipients and we use checkboxes to add a new recipient. As you can see here, in edit mode, it just looks weird. There's a lot of different same checkboxes and it doesn't make much sense. But if you look at the page logic, you see that it makes sense. Let me show you first it working so you can see how the result is. Here you can see 3 methods which I can send, and here I select a client. But I can select multiple clients if I want to. All I have to do is choose the first one. Then if I click here, add another recipient, a new box appears. And if I select another person, a new box appears here, a new checkbox. So I can select another one and so on. So here what I'm doing, I'm including new elements in the form. It appears to the user that I'm actually including them, but they already exist here. What I'm doing is I'm setting different values by clicking on the checkbox. And these values, they feed a certain page logic that I can show here. I'm going to click here on the edit logic so we can see this page logic. As you can see, there are many logic evaluations here. Some of them are unrelated to what I showed you, but they're related to the form in general, determining what parameters would be used and to what kind of values would be shown or hidden. And then we have the select the checks that we shown here. There are many different operations, depending on whether checkbox is checked or not, it would show something. So this logic controls a lot of how the parameters will be shaped when it goes to call the service action. On another integration that Casio will show, we went even further than this, and we actually showed and hidden buttons that are responsible for calling service actions. So depending on the values we had, we would call one service action or another. This will be shown shortly by Casio.
Okay, for our next element that we wanted to discuss, a lot of times in systems of record, we find that a lot of the data that comes back from the endpoints does not include email. And so we've had to get pretty creative on getting the email so that we can personalize the data within our systems of record. And to talk about this, I'm going to introduce you to Casio Helden, who is another one of our architects who's been working on quite a few of our system integrations. So with that, I will pass it to Casio.
Thanks, Alex. Most of the SORs can only identify a person or creator by their internal ID, internal user IDs. And the Microapp doesn't allow us to work with the user email. So in this case, this scenario, we have two different tables, one for user and one for the actual data. So this another table related to the data itself, we have the user ID. So basically what we did was to create a relationship between the user table and the data table that we want to show. So what we see here is the relationship between the users and the service. This is how the page looks on the backend. Here we have a table, and then we use the personalize function to use the same relationship that we already created to set that the user email needs to be equal to the survey owner email. With this approach, we can just list the surveys, in this case, the surveys related to the current user.
That's perfect. And so this was a big change because before this, we had to do kind of a hack with using selects to join an ID to an email. And with the latest exposure of some of the capabilities that we have now with the relationships and child APIs, we're really able to leverage some of these capabilities. So thanks, Kasia. This is great. So for the next area that we wanted to cover, we came across the need to have different service actions based on the logic of the inputs that we were getting. And so with that, I'd like to pass it to Casio to give us an overview of the problem that we were trying to solve and how he solved it.
Thanks, Alex. This is our Teams integration, and this is the meeting creation page. Thanks, Alex. And so this is our Teams integration, and this is the meeting creation page. And as you can see, we have 4 different buttons right here and 4 different lookups, each one related to different attendee. So we did it this way because Teams requires a different service action based on the number of attendees that we try to add on the meeting. So we use a page logic to toggle between these buttons based on the number of the attendees that the user select.
And that's awesome. And this actually solved one of the problems that we've had, and it also allowed us to do dynamic calls to different service actions. So it allowed us to manage different structures that were required by the Teams integration. So really good stuff there, Casio. And so what about the meeting creation? Can you give us an example of what it looks like to the end user?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a pre-populated form. And then right here, I can show you how the page logic works. So let me select myself as the first attendee. And I'm gonna put Alex Zaal. And as you can see, whenever I selected a different attendee, another another lookup has been showing on the page. So
yeah, and even though you can't tell, the button itself is also changing to the service action that's appropriate for 4 attendees versus 3 versus 2, right?
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Casio. That's really great stuff. I know that over the past year, there's been so many changes to the workspace environment and enhancements that have made it so much better for us to develop. It just keeps exciting us to see what's coming next. I know there's some pretty big changes coming in the future, and we're looking forward to jump full steam into them and really take advantage of the capabilities of this program. So with that, we really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys at Converge.